Hey everyone, in today's video I'm reviewing the brand new Samyang 35mm f1.4 Mark II lens on the Sony a7 IV for both photo and video. I have a really beautiful shoot on the streets of Sydney today, so let's get started. Start with some portraits here. I'm gonna crop them like just above, like I'll get a little bit of your thigh in the shot. For today's photo shoot, our model is Berry, Lydia's on makeup, and Dan is filming the behind the scenes. That's cool if you bring your shoulder in a little bit more, yeah. I'm starting off with some portraits right against this wall of leaves. For a better comparison, I usually like to ask my subject to stand about half a meter away from the wall, as this creates more separation. However, since I'm reviewing this lens, I do want to push what it's capable of, so instead, I asked Berry to be right against the leaves to see if the high amount of detail and texture would be challenging for the lens to focus. As you can see, we did manage to get some nice sharp images. It'd be cool if you could like swing your leg around or even kick it up or something. Like kind of like, yeah. And then do you want to do some also sitting just here as well? Just like the rest of Samyang's recent lens releases, this 35mm also uses an STM motor. I found the autofocus performance to be really great, and IAF was super sticky on the subject's eyes, which you'll be able to see throughout this photo shoot in the picture-in-picture view. This lens felt really easy to shoot with. It was always ready to go, even when Berry was moving around a little faster while we were getting some walking shots. In this spot here, you can see what a difference pulling your subject away from the background makes. I also used my full Lightroom preset to edit these shots. Even though autumn is almost over in Sydney and this location's colours were almost finished, I still wanted to try and pull out those autumn tones out as much as possible, so this preset really helped a lot with that. And then can we do one if you kind of rest your hand like that? I want to get like a close-up here. In terms of the lens build, this Samyang 35mm f1.4 Mark II is on the average weight mark at 659 grams. As a comparison, the Sigma 35mm f1.4 DGDN weighs 640 grams and the GM 35mm f1.4 weighs 524 grams. This lens doesn't have a lot of physical features. We have a focus ring, a custom switch, a focus hold button, and it also uses a filter thread of 67mm. Ooh, that looks awesome. We moved into a sunnier spot for more photos, and this lens still did a great job at keeping focus on the subject during some stronger backlight. That looks so pretty there. Aside from the autofocus performance being quite good, I'm really happy with the autofocus accuracy as well. The majority of my photos were in focus, and I love culling a shoot where the photos that I like the pose, expression, or composition also happen to be tack sharp when you zoom in to look at it at 100%. Every time we shoot, there's always bins in the background. It's so annoying. And I have to like Photoshop them out half the time. Oh. Is it hard? Depends. I try to shoot in a way that I can tell it's going to be easy to get rid of them. Oh, the lighting here is so pretty. I also, of course, have an autofocus accuracy test with Berry walking towards me, which we'll get to a little later on. Also, since we are in quite a different looking location, I did want a different feeling for the final photos here, and I decided to edit this set of photos with my earthy Lightroom preset pack so I can keep more of those nice greens in the location. Now that you've seen quite a few example images, you can see the sharpness of this lens is really beautiful. Maybe some in landscape here. Oh yes, that's so nice. As usual with Samyang lenses, it's sharp enough that we have a good amount of clarity and details in the photos, but it also renders skin texture very nicely as well, making it a flattering lens for portraits. I did end up adding some extra sharpening in Lightroom for my edits, as I do like that really crisp look for my final photos. All right, awesome. And then we'll go ahead a little bit. Oh my God, you're right there. We'll go out just a little bit further. So yeah, probably just there. And then I'll try and shoot kind of
upways. Yeah, that's pretty.
Something I did notice, especially in the extreme close-up photos, is the way this lens renders depth of field. It's not a super smooth transition from sharp to blurry. I know the GM 35mm f1.4 is a much more expensive lens, but just to show you a comparison of what I mean, here's a side-by-side shot. If you keep an eye on the out of focus eye on the left of both photos, you can see the GM has a smoother out of focus transition, whereas the Samyang looks a little less smooth in that area. I wouldn't say that this is a bad thing, just something that I noticed when sorting through my photos.
And then can you also like bend down towards me too? Just like a little bit with your hip. You can even swing your arms like across, yeah.
I think the colors straight out of the camera are nice as well. As usual with Samyang glass, the colors are a little on the warm side, but I personally really like what that looks like.
It's pretty cool, get some purple in the back. So we've got a really good spot where we can see some bokeh in the background here. So I'm gonna take a photo at a couple of different apertures. First one I'm gonna take is just at wide open, 1.4, and then I'm gonna bump the aperture up to f2.8 as well.
At f1.4, the bokeh from this lens is nice and round and very well defined in the background. I did notice some onion rings in the bokeh, so it's not super clean. I thought it could have been from the particular location we were shooting in. There's lots of branches and leaves and stuff like that, but in a different location on another day, I was able to recreate the textured bokeh. While the bokeh is very round, wide open, as you step your aperture down, it creates more of a nonagon shape with 9 sides, as this lens has 9 aperture blades.
And then I'll just stand back in that same spot and I'll get a shot at f5.6 as well. Just have to bump up my ISO. They're so pretty. I could get a little bit of light on you. Actually, can you and Dan swap places? Because he's standing in like a really good patch of sun. That's so nice. Oh my gosh, that is so pretty.
I did also find that this lens has quite heavy chromatic aberration. I'm usually not bothered with a little bit of CA in my photos as it is easily removable in Lightroom, but I found with this lens, sometimes the CA can be quite thick in the brighter backlit photos, so depending how much you need to remove in Lightroom, it can start to cause some black and white edges. I also found CA in purple, green, and blue throughout my photos, which again adds to that post-processing time when editing photos.
And then I feel like we should do like a walking shot as well, would be cool. Can we start, if you're just here on the road bit? So we're gonna take some movement photos with Barry walking towards me. I'm gonna do one at f1.4 and then f2.8 too. So this one's at f1.4. Okay, when you're ready.
In these walking shots at f1.4, I captured 16 out of 20 photos with critical focus, which is a really good in-focus ratio for a moving subject.
And we'll do that one more time. So these are f2.8. All right, when you're ready.
At f2.8, we actually had one less, so the total was 15 out of 20 photos in focus.
All right, and then let's walk back down to the main street. We'll get a couple more with some of like the buildings as well. Corner of that house would be really cool because you could lean maybe your elbows on that fence. Oh, that's so nice with the houses in the background. Actually, it like really suits your top too. It's like a black and white kind of theme. I like the little bit of tree that you can see in the top as well.
Finally, we have lens flares to take a look at. And by the way, you can download a sample gallery that I shot on a different day to take a closer look at the sharpness, bokeh, lens flare, and image quality of this lens. You can find that download link on my blog, which I'll leave linked in the description for you. This lens has a pretty interesting lens flare and it changes quite a lot depending on what the lighting is like. I really like what this softer lens flare looks like. You could easily use that creatively in your photos. There are also a couple of times when there is a more colorful lens flare that is more prominent in the frame, and when you step down to f/16, the lens flare is very defined in a small portion of the photo. Overall, I think this is a pretty good 35mm lens. However, this Samyang 35 Mark II has a lot of competition with 35mm lenses for Sony. In just the 35mm f1.4 AF category, we have the Zeiss, the GM35, the newer Sigma DG-DN, the older Sigma DG-HSM, and the original Samyang 35 f1.4. And that's not even including the Sigma f1.2 and all the f1.8 and other aperture 35mm. So again, there is a lot of competition here.
Could you stand is there any spiderwebs? A little bit. Without touching that, can you put both your elbows here? Because we could do like a couple of kind of portraits. Oh, it's kind of acting like a reflector as well. That's handy.
For the f1.4 price range, the main competitors for this Samyang Mark II is the Mark I version of this lens, and I do believe that they've improved on performance with the Mark II. The other main rival would be the Sigma 35 f1.4 DG-DN, which I've been using quite a lot on my channel recently. Even though the Samyang Mark II is a little cheaper, it still holds up pretty nicely against the Sigma in terms of sharpness and performance, but I do think it falls a little short because of the onion ring bokeh and the heavy CA. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I also tested this lens out for video and I think it has a lot of character and looks so beautiful for video. It's especially flattering when capturing people. Just like photo, in video this lens is nice and sharp. This video footage of Berry was captured on the A7S III by Dan with continuous autofocus on the fastest transition speed, and you can see that this lens does a good job at keeping focus when Berry or Dan are moving around. The bokeh in the background during video is really beautiful as well. I feel like the onion ring bokeh is not as noticeable in the video shots. You can also see some snippets of lens flare coming through for video, which, just like photo, I like this more monochromatic lens flare, which adds a nice touch to the shot. I also think I have finally found the perfect video example for focus breathing, which I will be using from now on in my office. Let me know what you think of it, because I'm going to use this for my future reviews as well. But anyway, this lens also has a small amount of focus breathing. So that is all I have for today's review of the Samyang 35mm f1.4 Mark II lens. Let me know what you think of the photos and the lens down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye!